A very warm welcome, dear viewer, to this lesson. We are going to discuss Primary 7 content, and we are continuing with our topic of economic development in Africa. We are looking at what is in the different African countries. To remind you, we finished to talk about the economic development in Nigeria. That is, when we are looking at things which were what happens in Nigeria, which things make Nigeria develop. We looked at the economic development of Libya. That's when we are looking at Libya in detail. We looked at economic development in Sudan, understanding what is in Sudan. And we came to look at the economic development in our very own country, Uganda. And today we want to look at the economic development in Ghana. That is what happened or what is in Ghana. We have this lesson picked from our page 54. And in Ghana, there is mainly the growing of cocoa. That is why we have cocoa growing in Ghana. We shall begin our discussion by saying that cocoa growing in Ghana is mainly done in Kumasi, that is on a large scale. It is mainly done in Kumasi. And this is done on a large scale. Of course, when we talk about something being done on a large scale, we mean it is on a plantation farming. So what are the conditions that this cocoa needs for it to grow well? Or which factors support the growing of cocoa in the Kumasi region in Kenya, in Ghana? Number one, we have the presence of well-drained fertile soil. Number two is the high temperatures that range between 20 degrees to 25 degrees Celsius. The crop also requires an area which receives plenty of rainfall. That is ranging from 1,000 to 1,500 millimeters. The area also requires a place with high humidity, and it requires what we call timely pruning. Remember this, with the pruning, we look at removing excess branches from the plant. This is aimed at allowing the plant to receive enough sunshine for it to be able to make its own food, as we learn in science. Page 55 gives us how cocoa is grown. And here we have the seeds, first of all, put in a nursery bed for around 5 months. Thereafter, they will be ready for what we call transplanting. Transplanting deals with getting the seedlings from the nursery bed and now taken to the main field or main garden. That's what we call transplanting. So after the seedlings have been raised from the nursery bed, they will be transplanted to the main or the actual field where they are now supposed to grow from. And by around 5 years, these plants will be ready or will have matured. And when it comes to the harvesting, we shall have the cocoa pods cut by using these machetes. Then it will be taken to be fermented. Fermenting is to add flavor to the cocoa and to prevent the seed from beginning to germinate. We have in the garden, cocoa is interplanted. That's what we call intercropping, which means it is planted alongside other crops. Why? Such that the other crops can be able to give these cocoa seedlings shelter, and of course they will be protected from the too much sunshine. And then also it helps to control the rate at which water flows. That is what we call the flowing water, which would wash away the seedlings. However, we also need to look at the uses of this cocoa. How is cocoa useful? Number one, the cocoa can be used as a raw material, that is for making other products. It can be used as food. The plants, the residue, that is the plant material which remains after harvesting the cocoa. Sometimes you'll find that these plant materials can be cut down and they can be used as fuel. I'm looking at wood fuel, that is as firewood, for example, which is also okay. Then also, the cocoa farming can provide employment to the people, to the farmers. The farmers get employed in doing that farm practice or in growing this crop as their economic activity. So it provides jobs to the people, of which these farms are always also raising some government revenue in form of raising taxation. The farmers who grow cocoa can sometimes face challenges, just like when we're looking at what happens in Nigeria. We say there is oil palm growing, and we had problems that were facing those farmers in Nigeria who grow oil palm. You will find that these problems cut across. Being crop farmers, you shall also expect problems like crop pests and diseases which attack these cocoa plants. We shall have a shortage of labor, shortage of capital, lack of enough market. That's when we shall talk about price fluctuation, that is prices not being constant. It also brings another challenge, another problem to these farmers who grow cocoa. Then we also have poor transport and communication facilities. Sometimes this is mainly common when it comes to exporting, transporting the farm produce, the cocoa, from the farms up to where they are supposed to be consumed from, or where they are supposed to be processed, fermented, and so on. Sometimes you'll find it becomes a problem. Then lastly, we cannot fail to talk about the changes in climate or in climatic conditions. We have talked about the area requiring an area, we have talked about the crop requiring an area which experiences a lot of rainfall. But at times we find that due to climatic changes, the season might change and the crop can be affected, and as a result, the farmer registers a very big loss. So that is what we call poor climatic conditions at times, which come as a result of climatic changes or climate change. We have our map on page 55 down. If you have your book, that map is giving us the cocoa growing areas, that is in Ghana, together with the movement of cocoa. After that, we shall be writing a test, that is on page 56, which we are expected to answer neatly and correctly and with concentration. After that test, that activity, we go to another subtopic in our very topic of economic development in Africa, And this, we are going to be looking at the challenges which are facing the African countries. Much as we have seen those things, those activities, those resources that are in those countries, we have looked at the economic activities that people do there, trying to manage life, but we shall be able to realize that these African countries are facing a lot of challenges, which challenges range from the social ones, economic challenges, and political challenges. When we look at social challenges, we are now looking at the challenges facing African countries. Challenges facing African countries. So we are looking at which are these challenges. We have said we shall group these challenges under social challenges, affecting the lives of people in Africa socially. We shall have the economic challenges, which affect the countries economically. And then we shall also have these challenges which affect the African countries politically. We shall call them the political challenges. We shall be talking about these challenges one by one. To begin with, we have the social challenges. Social challenges. Now, these social challenges, we have problems like illiteracy, that is the inability of people to read and write. That is our first challenge that we have in that line. We have poverty in Africa facing the people. We have ignorance of people. Ignorance meaning people do not know what they are supposed to do. Poverty, we are looking at people being poor. And then illiteracy, we are looking at people not being educated. Of course, we need to realize that with education, we learn the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. So if people are illiterate, it simply means that people do not know how to read and write, and it becomes a challenge that when it comes to competing for jobs and so on. Of course, today we need elite people. I mean people who went to school. So we'll find that those who did not go to school, who did not learn, will not be able to get better jobs that will make them get a better life, or to live a better life. We shall also have problems like diseases. In these social challenges, we have diseases. And as we talk right now, remember we are in the situation of the pandemic that is corona, that has become global, the whole world. So you'll find Africa is one of those continents in that world, and we are facing that challenge right now. That's why we are able to reach each other online. We have high infant mortality rates. We shall be generalizing them as mortality rates. Mortality rates. What we are having as mortality rates, we are looking at the death rates. mortality. We are looking at the death happening. We shall have mortality, infant mortality rates. Here we are looking at the rate at which the babies die before making a birthday. A baby or babies dying when they have not yet made 1 year. And then we have also what we call maternal mortality. We are looking at the deaths which are associated with the pregnant mothers. When we talk about mortality, I want you to note that here we are talking about death. Death rates are too high in Africa. We have talked about children dying before they make 1 year. That is what we term as infant mortality rates. This can be due to a number of factors. When we continue checking on our books, you will find we have these things ahead. The mortality rates in children are caused due to some challenges like getting exposed to diseases like malaria, killing these children, poor health, attention given to children when they fall sick. That can be as a result of ignorance from the parents and negligence, and these children end up dying of these diseases and other preventable causes. I mean, things that would be prevented. So that one is also in Africa. Maternal deaths, we are looking at pregnant mothers or expectant mothers dying due to pregnancy complications. That is what we call maternal deaths. We have another problem of high fertility rate, which has raised a high population in the African countries, which means the rate at which women produce children is too high, and you will find that since they are overproducing, you will find the number of people goes high. People become too many in these countries, and when people become too many, we need to note that the resources may not be available or enough for everyone, and it becomes a challenge. The other problem that is associated with this is what we call teenage pregnancies. Teenage pregnancy. We can call this early pregnancies, which means we are looking at young girls dropping out of school and becoming pregnant, thereby becoming the children or the mother. A child is a mother to another child. So a child is the mother to a child. That becomes a very big problem in the continent. So teenage pregnancies, together with early marriages, come together, and then we have low levels of contraceptive use. Here we are looking at the contraceptives. We are looking at the devices, the things that would make people not to overproduce, like people planning to have or when to have a child. This goes to family planning. Then we have famine. Famine, that is lack of food to be eaten in a country, making people to starve. That is another serious problem that is facing the people in Africa. Next is, we are going to look at the other economic challenges. Those have been under the social challenges. Now, in the economic challenges, number one, we are now looking at the economic development. Poor transport and communication. Poor transport and communication. The two move together in that after communicating, people get on the road now to move. So poor transport and communication bars the movement or makes the movement of people or goods impossible. For example, you will find that people would transport their goods from one place to another, they go and sell them, they get money. People would maybe move themselves to those areas and business goes on. But because of poor transport and communication, this is affected. Number 2 is lack of funds. Lack of funds. That is now the money. Lack of funds. Let us lower it so that any other person can understand. Lack of money. Money for what? One can be wanting to set up a business, but does not have the capital. It becomes a challenge, a burden. Economically, the person cannot raise the money to begin that business or that investment. We have low levels of technology. Low levels of technology. If you want to remember this very well, when we were looking at the problems affecting the mining sector in African countries, this was one of them. We said low levels of technology make some African countries not to exploit their mineral wealth, meaning they cannot be able to get or to extract all their minerals because of the low levels of technology. Machinery is not enough. Then in addition to that, we also have low levels of skilled labor. Low levels of skilled labor. We talked about skills and we talked about skilled labor. You will find that these are the people who have the skill. They have what they have, they know what is supposed to be done. Sometimes these people are not enough in these African countries and it becomes a problem. There is a very serious problem of what we call unemployment and employment. Which means people do not have jobs, enough jobs. And sometimes this happens because of illiteracy. Like I said, for you to be given an office, you need to be an educated person, to be having the relevant papers or the required papers. Now, if all you don't have, then you cannot be given a job and you remain unemployed. And when you're unemployed, remember you don't have where to get the money from. So problems come in. To add on unemployment, we have what we call corruption. Corruption. This simply means the mismanagement of what was meant to be given to the public. Mismanagement of public funds for personal gain. You will find if someone is in charge and is given social services to be delivered to the people, this person ends up diverting some part of it and delivers a little. That is what we call corruption. It becomes a problem to the country. We have brain drain and then what we call economic collapse also coming in. And the other problem finally is what we call dependency on foreign aid. We can call it over-depending on foreign aid. This is missing in your book. we can add it over depending on foreign aid. We are looking at assistance, not aid the disease. So we shall be able to note that most of the African countries, or for us in Africa, our countries are what we group as the third world countries, poor countries. So what happens always is that the African countries depend on assistance from the developed countries. That is, it's like we are now the beggars, begging for help from those other countries, which becomes a problem. Then from that we shall move to the political challenges. If you have added this to that, you now move with me to the political challenges. Here, we are looking at problems associated with governments now. Which problems do we have? The main problem we are going to have, and we make it number one, is what we call wars. This mainly civil wars. A civil war is that war which breaks out within the country, within the members of that country. That is what we call a civil war. And this has contributed to the greatest percentage of refugees in Africa. In Primary 7, we ask you that question. Which is the main cause of refugees in Africa? What makes people to be chased or to run from their countries to become refugees in other countries? It's because of this problem. A political problem that we call wars. We have also what we call military coup and violation of human rights. Military coup. This moves with the violation of human rights. Violation of human rights. How have human rights been abused? This is what we call abuse of human rights. How? People are denied freedom of movement. Some people are denied freedom of press. Some people are denied freedom of free hearing in courts of law. Some people are denied the freedom of life. They are being murdered. That is another way human rights are being abused in African countries. Next problem is what we call political instability. This political instability means insecurity in these African countries, which comes as a result of the wars. Insecurity. That is what we call political instability. And then we had already talked about the high number of refugees. And we say these refugees come in as a result of wars, and mainly the civil wars. Then, lastly is what we call poor government. Poor government. Or we can simply come in poor governance, and this leads us to what we call dictatorship. Dictatorship by some presidents in Africa. They become dictators. Instead of going by rule of or ruling the country based on the constitution, these people end up making their own decrees. That is dictatorship. So that is what those are the problems that African countries face. We have the social problems, the economic problems, and the political problems as we have seen them. And we want to go to page, on page 57, we are given the illiteracy, that is the inability of a person to read and write. And what makes people unable to read and write? Maybe they are poor, they could not pay, they could not afford the school fees. Social injustice in some families, you find some children are favored, others are left. You find, mostly you'll find in the African setup, in that African mind, they always educate only the boys mainly. But now there is what we call gender equality. You will find there is need to educate a girl child. According to the African mindset, people used to think that girls are to be just there at home, then they grow up, they are married off. They are sent to marriage, which is not the case today. So you'll find if someone has that mindset, that such a child cannot be given education as a service. Then we have problems caused by high levels of illiteracy. There will be unemployment because these people can't get jobs. Poverty will come in. It hinders modern development since these people cannot provide skilled labor. And also, it hinders the farmers from using the modern farming skills. The government introduced programs which are to help facilitate education. In primary levels, the government came up with the program we call the Universal Primary Education. That is to provide free education to children in Uganda. Most of those whose parents cannot afford to pay school fees in private schools. Remember, in private schools, parents have to pay the money. But in the government schools, children go and learn for free. So the government facilitates that. This is universal primary education. The government also introduced what we call universal secondary education. That is to help these children who complete primary to continue with education. Because after these children completing primary, they can be lacking money to go to secondary. So the government also came up with a program that is Universal Secondary Education, USE, which also to attain education after primary. The government also came up with what we call ABEC. That is Alternative Basic Education for Karamoja. That is the government program which was introduced basically for the children in Karamoja to influence them, to motivate them, or to pursue them, or to make them go to learn in schools. So it's a special program for the children of Karamoja. We call it Alternative Basic Education for Karamoja, APEC. We also have basic education for urban poor areas. Basic education for urban poor areas, which means there are some areas in the urban areas whereby some people are of low income. You find these are people who live in slums, such areas. They are, much as they are in towns, much as they are in urban areas, they have little money. So the government also provides that program that we call basic education for urban poor areas in order to make these children also get education. That's what we call BUPA. Then we have the complementary opportunities for primary education, that is called complementary opportunities for primary education as another program. So these are the government programs that were introduced in order to eradicate, that is to fight against illiteracy in the countries, and you're looking at Uganda in particular here. Diseases, we have already talked about diseases breaking out, HIV/AIDS, we have coronavirus, which is becoming a serious issue, which is already a serious issue rather, typhoid, hepatitis B, Ebola, cholera, tuberculosis, Malaria is already, I think we already talked about malaria. So all these diseases can claim the lives of people. Therefore, they become a problem. We talk about that under here. Effects of a disease, on page 59, a disease can lead to loss of labor. When someone dies, someone who has been working dies, therefore there is a gap. A disease can make one to lose a life, loss of life or death. Then a disease can also cause pain on someone. Find when you have a disease, you feel pain in that part of your body. So this is very bad. This is a very bad effect. Then it also enables the government to spend a lot of money on that disease. For example, right now we are looking at the coronavirus, and you find that the government spends a lot of money through the Ministry of Health trying to find ways of preventing its spread and managing it. So you'll find the government spends a lot of money making the masks for people, providing medication to people, immunization, that is vaccination to people, and a lot of things that the government does. We shall not be able to finish all of them. A disease also makes families poor. It makes a family poor. Why? The money that you would use for other programs in the family will go to treat the disease. And you will find at the end of it all, the disease has taken all the money and you remain without. Therefore, what are the solutions to the diseases? One is educating people on the preventive measures. Preventive measures, we are looking at ways through which this disease is contained without it being spread from one person to another. That's why you'll find that the government, through the Ministry of Health, has always educated people. People have been taught, you find on radios, on televisions, on newspapers, every other platform of media. You will find people always told, wear face masks, maintain social distance, always do not shake hands, do not use always sanitizer, sanitize your hands, such that even if you had touched the virus, when you sanitize it, it dies and does not get into your body. So giving those educative messages, that is one of the ways we can control the spread of these diseases. Number two is what we call creating public awareness and improving on sanitation. Remember, diseases come due to relaxity of people in health. That is when people relax in maintaining their health. For example, when you look at diseases like Ebola, diarrheal diseases, these are diseases that come as a result of people having poor management in their communities. You find houseflies everywhere. At the end of it all, they can spread a disease. You find stagnant water in the trenches, in the channels, and people are also there. At the end of it all, the mosquitoes can breed in such areas and malaria breaks out in that area. So that is what we call creating awareness, teaching people on such things and encouraging them to maintain that hygiene, that sanitation in their communities. And then implementing immunization programs. Immunization is aimed at boosting the body's immunity such that your body is strong against that disease, such that even if the disease comes to your body, it will be destroyed without it spreading to other or to your system or in your system. That's why you'll find that when they immunize you, like they give you that injection against corona, for example, you will find that that immunity is going to be now the soldier in your body, such that if the corona comes, it will just be fought back. So that is what we call immunization. And then also establishing more health medical centers, more health facilities, whereby people can access medication easily without people traveling for long distances looking for health facilities. And finally, by training more medical workers such that these people can help to provide adequate health services. For that, we move to famine on that very page, which gives us that famine occurs due to lack of food to be eaten in an area. And what makes food not to be there? Number one, maybe people were running. We talked about civil wars under political. When there is a war in an area, don't be deceived that people will be going to the gardens to grow crops. No. Everyone will be running for his or her life. So at the end of it all, people will neglect growing crops. Not just neglecting, but they are running for their lives. Then at the end of it all, they have nothing to eat because they don't grow crops. Remember, we always say a man harvests what he planted. He reaps what he sowed. Then we also have poor climatic poor climate. Sometimes you'll find that people grew the crops fine, but the climate changed and the crops got dried in the garden. Then maybe the floods came and washed away the crops. At the end of it all, people don't have what to eat. Famine breaks out. So that is what we have. And then we have also other natural disasters like landslides. Eruption can occur, drying all the crops in the garden. And this becomes a problem. And then we have pests and diseases destroying these crops from the garden. At the end, people don't have what to eat. Famine. Finally, we have what we call lack of food security. That sometimes people, after harvesting, they end up selling everything. They forget that they will need again some food in the nearby future. At the end of it all, they sold the food, they wasted the money, and now they don't have what to eat. That is why the government is always encouraging people to have what we call food security, keeping food for the future use. So that is another cause. What are the effects of famine? What happens due to famine? Number one, people are going to emaciate. That is what they call malnutrition. people growing thin because they don't have what to eat. People losing weight. People even die due to the continuous starvation. People end up dying. And then it leads to low levels of productivity, meaning as people lose the energy, they will not be able to produce, they will not be able to provide the enough labor, that energy that they would provide when someone has eaten. At the end of it all, there is poor or low productivity in that. And the last is, we shall have now people starting to depend on foreign aid, which is also another problem. Over-depending on foreign aid for assistance. You now see other countries coming in to help a country, providing some food, basic needs, and other basic needs and so on. Solutions to famine, meaning what should be done? The government should encourage farmers to grow more food crops. Food crops, these are the ones that we grow to eat, much as we sell a portion of them, but we grow them entirely for eating. Then also having what we call food security that I have already talked about. Government can encourage people to always store some food so that they can eat them. And then by improving on infrastructure in an area and encouraging what we call mechanized agriculture, that is modern farming, use of farm tools, improved farm machines to cultivate, such that farmers will be able to come up with high yields, not just struggling with the simple tools that is in subsistence farming, whereby farmers produce just very little, and at the end still it will not be enough for them. So farmers are always encouraged to use machinery, to use machines, and when they use machines, of course, this one can be done on a large scale, and when it is on a large scale, you'll find that even the crop yields will be, even the yield, the produce will be too much for the country. So those are the solutions that the government can put in place in order to help these farmers to be able to produce enough yield. Page 60 gives us the infant mortality rates. We are looking at the deaths of people. The death of children before they make 1 year. Causes, what brings this? I had already talked about some. We are just going through our books. One, we have what we call poor nutrition given to the children. Number two is lack of enough immunization services given to these children. When this child is born, a child is supposed to be given different immunizations, and they come at a specified time. So you'll find sometimes, due to the ignorance of the parents, they don't take those children for those immunizations. And at the end of it all, when a child gets that disease, the child does not have that immunity in him or her. Child dies. So that is lack of immunization. And also lack of proper medical care for the children. A child has got malaria, the parent doesn't know what to do, parent is illiterate, ignorant, is just playing around. At the end of it all, a child dies of malaria. That is another serious cause. And then poor sanitation from the child's area. Of course, this is caused by those who are grown up. They cannot help. A child itself cannot be able to have that done. Cannot make the sanitation by itself. It's the work of those who are grown up, the parents and other people who are grown up. Ways the government of Uganda has tried to solve the problem of infant mortality. That is to reduce the rate at which children die before making 1 year. That is before celebrating their birthday, their first birthday. One, we have promoting immunization programs. We have training more medical personnel to improve on the provision of social service, that's medical care. And then educating people, sensitizing people on the importance of this program of immunization, such that they can be able to take children. As we talk right now, the government is struggling, educating people on the importance of going for immunization, vaccination against corona. You will find people are not going. At the end of it all, their systems will be weak when they get the disease and they will die. Then we have the government also providing health messages. This can be done through the platforms, through media, televisions, radios, newspapers, magazines, any other form, any other platform that can make people access this information. That is what the government also does, such that people get to these messages and they do what the government is telling them, and at the end of it all, they will have what we call a long lifespan or life expectancy. So what we call life expectancy, as I have said, we are looking at the period that one is supposed to stay in this world. When you are born, how long do you live on earth before you die? That's what we call life expectancy. So sometimes we'll find that we can have a low life expectancy or a long life expectancy. What makes us to have a low life expectancy? We have these things written. Number one, we have diseases. Diseases come in and they knock us down, we die. We have poor medical services provided to us, in that when you get a disease, instead of you being treated, the treatment is not proper, we die. Poor nutrition in people, the diet, poor diet, and at the end of it all, people die due to malnutrition. We have problems like wars. A war breaking out in an area, we are killed. So you'll find that the life expectancy goes low. We don't live long the way we were to live. Then we also have our lack of clean and safe drinking water. People get sick, and at the end of it all, they die. And also we have poverty. Poverty also brings this, in that you are sick, but you don't have the money for treatment. What happens? Your life goes. So poverty is also bad, because it makes one's life to go like that. So these are the factors that bring low life expectancy. And we have what we call physical inactivity. Inactivity meaning you do not practice physical exercise. You are not active. So you'll find people who are docile like that, who do not practice, end up piling a lot of complications. They get blood pressure, they die because of not exercising. So that is another cause of low life expectancy. And then sometimes you find that some people take lifestyles which are very dangerous to their health, like smoking, being a drug addict. At the end of it all, these substances we take affect our internal organs. And at the end of it all, tuberculosis, cancer, lung cancer, one dies. So that is about lifestyle. One gets exposed to prostitution, gets AIDS from nowhere, dies. So it also lowers our long life expectancy. That is what we can discuss about life expectancy. The long life expectancy, we now talk about the opposite of the other. This is now when we live for a long time. Now, which things make us to reach that? Immunization. In the country, we are able to immunize ourselves, we remain strong. We eat well, that is having good diet, good nutrition. We are exercising. We do physical exercise, therefore we are healthy and strong. We are not engaged in those ways of living that will make us to get problems, in those poor lifestyles, like smoking. I was telling you, that one, at least when we avoid such, we shall be able to reach higher. That is, we shall be able to prolong life. So that is what we can share for now. Next time when we meet, we shall be continuing from corruption, understanding it well, how it becomes a problem. Remember, corruption has been under the economic problems. That will be our next discussion. I want to thank you for your attention in this lesson. May God bless you.